G'day folks, it's Mara here. Welcome back to another exciting game of cases you should know. This case is Mr. Murray and Owaka Motors, and it's about an investigation and a dismissal without necessarily what you would describe as the most thorough process. What do we need to know? We need to know there's a bloke, he applies for a job, the job says we need a mechanic, but it turns out he's just a really impressive almost mechanic, so they decide to hire him with a spirit of enthusiasm and say, you know what, we'll apprentice you and see you through. It works out all right for a while. Things seem to be going well. A couple of little dents on the car, as it were, at the start of the journey, but 2 thumbs up, we're doing fine. Until it turns out Mr. Murray loses his driver's license and the employer discovers this. The driver's license is specifically identified in the employment agreement as a necessary prerequisite to doing the job, as is the fact that you will have a proper investigation and you'll have the chance to have issues raised with you and to respond to them as part of any investigation. There is a meeting, it is held with this individual, and there is a conversation about the loss of license and a conversation about how important that is. The employee says, look, it's sort of important, but not really. You can probably do the job without it. How about we kind of don't worry about that so much? The employer says, look, we'll have a think about it. We'll come back to you. Then the employee has a significant personal event and takes a week off work, or at least takes a few days off work. Is thinking about coming back, and the employer says, look, we've got a lot to think about as well. Take the week and we'll catch up on Monday. They do catch up the following week and essentially a dismissal ensues. Depending on who you ask, the employer says that we had a bit of a conversation with them and just came to the conclusion it wasn't the case. The employee sort of says, well, I showed up and they just basically said, take your tools and get out. So there's a bit of a disparity there around kind of the level of process for that follow-up meeting. Goes to court, as you can imagine, and essentially the authority says, well, there's a bit of a yes and a bit of a no. There's a bit of so okay, not so okay to be found here. Yes, it's appropriate for the driver's license to be a determining factor. Yes, it is appropriate for the employer to be able to dismiss on that basis, but no, having a conversation about it and having the employee submit that it's not necessarily vital and you saying you'll have a bit of a think about it and come back doesn't necessarily meet the sort of high standard of investigating the issue carefully and clearly, putting the matter to the person, letting them have a response, and you making a determined determination on that point. So that essentially the complete process of investigating that point, if you will, of interrogating that point, isn't properly made. As a result of that, the employer's decision is found to be unjustified because it's been made the wrong way. There's a 15% discount for contribution in this matter, but the employer is found to have dismissed on a basis that is unreasonable or unjustified. So folks, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what I take from this case in that investigation piece is that you have to be really clear about the issue that you're investigating and the consequence of that issue, and provide someone with an opportunity to specifically respond to those issues. You can't just have a chat about it in a sort of general sense. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, as always, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much for joining me here today, and we will no doubt do this again soon.